Hey everybody, Devin here with Backcountry Exposure. We're going to talk about how to choose the right shoes for backpacking in this video. Now, I've got obviously many different options to choose from that are going to help with this conversation today. We're going to talk about boots versus hiking shoes versus trail runners and how they all fit within the various needs that we have as hikers and backpackers. Now, something that I want to start with first is, do you choose boots or trail runners? The trend right now with hikers, particularly in the thru hiking community, is to go very lightweight and take a trail runner on your hikes. This is a lightweight option. It allows for really good mobility. And there is this thing of the more weight I have on my foot, the more tiring it can be. And so boots are becoming less and less common out on the trail. However, being totally frank and honest, this is not always the best option. This may be the best option in a lot of cases. So let's talk about the anatomy of a shoe first. You've got different ways that these are all constructed, and I'm going to use this Danner Trail 2650 as one option, and this Ultra. This is the Superior 3.0, and talk about the differences between these, because this is a hiking shoe and this is a trail runner. So let's talk about the Superior first. This is a very popular brand on the trail. People love the Lone Peak, they love the Superior or the Timp. It's a great option for you out on the trail. However, this is more so designed as a runner. That's why it's called a trail runner. And if you're not familiar with how running shoes are constructed, they use different densities of foam on them than you might get from a hiking shoe like this Danner. And the biggest difference here is a running shoe is going to use potentially a softer foam. And when I talked to a good friend of mine that is actually one of the founders of Ultra, I asked him about this. Like, people talk about how this shoe happens to fall apart in some ways. And the conversation that I had with him when I asked him about that was, well, the shoe is not designed to have a lot of use every single day. And so they do happen to wear out a little bit faster because of the way that this is constructed, where a runner is going to actually rotate their shoes and not wear the same pair of shoes day after day. They will rotate to allow the foam in this shoe to recover and rebound and just come back to where it was before you spent a day running and putting a bunch of miles on it. So then moving on to a hiking shoe, this is going to be a much stiffer and a denser type of construction. So when I try to manipulate or just flex this shoe, this has a lot less flex to it than you get with this Ultra. So this is going to move a lot easier. And what this is going to do is potentially cause a little bit more fatigue early on in the foot than you might get with a slightly stiffer, more supportive shoe that is meant to handle heavier loads. So when you look at a shoe like this Danner, this has all sorts of other anatomy construction in it that is different from this one, and especially different from like this La Sportiva Helios. This is a trail runner, but this is not going to be the best option for the trail. In fact, this would be my least favorite option because of how soft and malleable it is. Yeah, it's a very comfortable shoe, but my feet get so tired being out on the trail with these because I'm not getting a lot of protection on the underside. So when you're looking at shoes that need to match conditions that you're going to be in, if it's a very rocky kind of scenario or trail, or you're like peak bagging and you're doing a bunch of boulder hopping, having a shoe that's designed to handle being on rocks and roots and things so that it gives you the support in your foot that you need, going with something like this that has what they call in here a trail guard, but this is within the midsole a piece of plastic that helps provide extra support for the foot and protection for the foot. So no, not every shoe is the right shoe for every condition or every person. Let's talk about the shape of the shoe, and the Ultra is a good one to compare to, and then we'll use this La Sportiva Bushido as well. So the Bushido, this also has that like kind of rock plate in the bottom of it that this Danner also has. But if you look at the toe box in particular on the Bushido versus the Ultra, now I get that a lot of people really enjoy how much their foot is able to splay out in the Ultra, a lot of room, it's very comfortable for them. But when we're talking about the foot shape of you personally, this is a terrible shoe for me. I don't enjoy wearing Ultra because I have very narrow, skinny feet, and I have like a size 8 foot. So this is just way too wide, and laterally, my foot moves back and forth way too much, creating a lot of movement, insecurity as I'm walking, and it's just not a great situation. When I'm looking at this shoe, which the Bushido is one of my all-time favorite shoes for hiking, it's got a lot of protection, a great tread pattern on here with deep lugs that provide a lot of traction and everything for the trail. But this is a very narrow toe box on this shoe, and it fits my foot very, very nice. So when it comes to fitting your shoes properly, I know that we're in a scenario right now where things are not awesome for you to be able to go to a store and try things on. And that's where we're going to talk about today's sponsor, backcountry.com. Backcountry is amazing. Not only do they have tons of options of shoes that you can choose from, all 3 of these shoes I picked up recently from Backcountry to be broadening the spectrum of brands that I'm using. Salomon, Danner, even Merrell are brands that I'm opening up to trying out that I haven't in the past. I've been a La Sportiva person for a long time. But all of these are available from backcountry.com. And as you are researching these different types of shoes that you might want to try out, you can ask questions to their gearheads to find out a lot of more information about maybe how the shoe fits or how it compares to another shoe. Like, I want to know how this Salomon compares to the Bushido, and can you give me any experience of how the fit is going to work with these? And should I know anything up front about the way, any feedback that customers have had? Like, the gearheads are going to give you a lot of good information, and they're an amazing resource that you can get online, and you can talk to a real person that has experience with the products in the Backcountry and can give you the right information. And you can also just Google search for great articles. Backcountry also happens to have a great article about how to choose the right shoe for backpacking. So I definitely recommend that, and I've linked it down in the video description as well. So thank you to Backcountry for sponsoring this video today. And let's talk about socks and how socks relate to this conversation, because a shoe is not going to be like the whole system. You need to have the right pair of socks for the shoe as well, for it to fit correctly, for it to perform the way that it's supposed to, and not give you unnecessary fatigue and issues with your foot. That's blisters, or if you have too thick of a sock and it pushes your toe up really close against the toe box of the shoe, you can end up with black toe, which just basically means that the nail is dead and falls off at some point. But having the right pair of socks is really important as well. You've got different brands of socks that are really popular, but 2 of my favorite are Smart Wool and Darn Tough. The biggest benefit to these is they're not cotton. So merino wool, and these are going to provide you with the protection that you need so that you can prevent blisters, because anytime that a blister is going to happen with your foot, that is something that is taking you away from being able to enjoy yourself more on the trail. Things that I like to do that create a great system is to have a nice sock that properly fits the shoe that you're using. Some shoes are going to fit a little bit tighter, some are going to fit a little bit more loose, and so your sock thickness is going to adapt to that. So these are two different thickness of socks. This has a lot of cushion on the bottom. This is a little bit lighter weight and just cushion in the toe and the heel. But you also want to make sure that in the act of preventing blisters, you get a good sock that doesn't have a seam right across the front of the toe. And with Smartwool and Darn Tough, you don't have seams that come right across the front of the toe, or in other places that would be high friction areas. If you do find yourself in a situation where you're pretty prone to blisters, getting something like this liner sock from Smartwool is going to be really important as well. So I wear this, and then I wear another sock over top of it, and that provides a barrier for my foot to not friction rub against the back or the side or whatever of the shoe where I might normally get a blister. It's going to give you the protection that you need, and so liner socks are a great way to help protect your feet and create a whole footwear system. Now let's quickly move on to whether or not the shoe that you choose or the boot that you choose matches your backpacking system and the conditions or the trail that you are going to be going and doing. So let's talk about a boot versus a shoe. The biggest thing that a shoe is going to provide for you is a lightweight piece of footwear. But if you have a much heavier load on your back, say 30 to 40 pounds of weight, this can be a lot of stress put on your ankle because you don't have any support with all of that weight on your back. So a boot is going to provide you with good ankle support. And if you are somebody that just naturally has weak ankles, that is a thing. Not all of us are superhuman and never roll our ankles. Some people have rolled their ankles many, many times playing sports or whatever, and they're just a lot weaker. And so using a boot in that case is really important. So having a high top or even a mid, so halfway between these two right here, that's going to give you a good ankle support and allow you to be able to more safely, but also more comfortably carry heavier loads on your back. But then you also have to consider the difference between these two boots right here. This is a hiking boot. This is also a hiking boot, but the biggest difference is this is an insulated boot. So yeah, in the winter time, I'm going to choose a shoe or a boot that is insulated. It's going to protect my feet, keep my feet warm, and provide the support that I want. And also, a boot is nice because a gaiter is going to come over top of it and prevent snow and things from getting inside that would make the shoe get wet. A boot is super important for using in specific conditions or where your body is needed for protecting your ankles, your feet, and that kind of thing. And it's nice because boots aren't always heavy. This boot right here is not that much heavier than this Solomon shoe right here, or any of these. It is not that much heavier, and it's a great waterproof option as well. So that's a nice thing about boots is if you find yourself doing a lot of stream crossings or anything, this can be a good way to keep your feet dry if you're not doing really deep stream crossings. Now, just a few more points here before we wrap this video up. Let's talk about waterproof or like a Gore-Tex lined shoe versus not waterproof and why you might choose one or the other. This shoe right here, this is the Lycan GTX. This is a waterproof shoe. It has a Gore-Tex liner versus like the Bushido here. This does not have a liner that makes it waterproof. And like this Nova from Merrell, this also does not have a liner. So why would I choose a waterproof shoe over a non-waterproof shoe? Well, the biggest thing is in a trail running aspect, this is going to provide protection from your feet getting wet and then getting like raisiny that you get when you sit in a tub for a long time, or you're swimming. And so that then you're not then getting blisters because you have a wet foot. So in like early mornings when you've got dew point and brush and everything is a little bit wet, a waterproof shoe like that is going to protect your feet, help keep them dry, especially if you wear like a trail gaiter over the top. That's a great system for that kind of condition where you're not going to have any stream crossings or that kind of thing. But in my case in Utah, where I spend a lot of time in the desert and sand, this is also a great way to keep your feet clean and not get totally full of sand. So very often I hike in the desert with this shoe to keep sand out of my socks and out of the shoe. That helps me just enjoy the trail a lot more than filling the toe box of the shoe with sand and getting it compacted with sand, which is a huge, I can't stand that kind of stuff. But the downside to a waterproof shoe versus going with a breathable shoe is that this is going to allow your foot to breathe and stay a lot drier. What happens with a waterproof shoe is this doesn't breathe, and so your feet over a long day get very sweaty, and it's important for you when you stop and take breaks that you take your shoe off and let your feet breathe, and that's less of a case with the breathable non-waterproof shoe because your foot is able to breathe, but then it comes with those downsides of, well, you could potentially get your feet wet pretty easy. So to recap on all of this, let's just remember that your shoe needs to match a few different things. It needs to match the conditions that you're going to experience. It needs to be something that your body needs. If you have high arches or flat feet, you may need to swap out insoles in your shoe to make the shoe more comfortable and appropriate for you. There's lots of different options out there on the market, but you may need a boot, and this is the best option for you, or just a more supportive hiking shoe will be a better option for you. Or you are a very lightweight backpacker and you don't carry heavy loads, you like to move fast, and so having a lightweight shoe like this that's still supportive, provides good traction and everything, and not to the point that you're just creating unnecessary stress on your feet with such a light trail runner. But this is a great option as well, and it's all down to personal preference, and you should never let anybody give you a hard time for the footwear that you select for your personal needs and what you are trying to accomplish out on the trail. I love to wear boots. I love hiking shoes like this. In fact, I'm stoked on this Danner Trail 2650. And yeah, trail runners, it's all good. You just need to do what makes the most sense for you, fits your foot the best, all those things that create a good, comfortable scenario for you out on the trail. Thank you so much for watching today. I know this is a lot of information. This is a longer video to talk about really kind of nitty-gritty things about shoes. But if you have questions, please feel free to jump down in the comments and ask those questions. And thank you to Backcountry as well for sponsoring this video today. And make sure that you check out any of the links that I've got down in the description, but you can also ask questions from their gearheads. Also, use my code BACKCOUNTRYEXPOSURE at checkout to save 15% from Backcountry. There are some exclusions on that, so you'll just have to see what it applies to, but it's great stuff. So thank you guys for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. Hope you have an awesome day. Catch you on the next video. See you later.